Maya and Dr. Vex worked through the remainder of the night, planning how to transport Starfire to the research station's medical bay. The dragon was enormous, far too large for conventional transport, but Dr. Vex had an idea. The station's main cargo transporter, he explained. It was designed to move heavy geological samples. If we can modify it, we might be able to transport the dragon in sections, using emergency stasis fields to maintain life signs during the process. It was risky. The technology had never been used on living beings, especially one as complex as a dragon. But Starfire's wing was getting worse, and without proper surgical repair, the dragon might lose the ability to fly forever. Through their mental connection, Maya explained the plan to Starfire. The dragon's response was a mixture of fear and hope. Starfire had survived for thousands of years by being cautious, but the trust built between the dragon and Maya over the past 5 nights had created a bond stronger than fear. As dawn approached, Maya and Dr. Vex prepared to return to the station. They needed to gather more equipment and find a way to access the cargo transporter without raising suspicion. But as they climbed out of the hidden valley, Dr. Vex's communication device began chirping urgently. "Emergency message," Dr. Vex said, activating the device. His scales immediately turned pale as he read the incoming data. "Maya, we have a problem." The message was from the station commander, ordering all personnel to prepare for immediate evacuation. A hegemony battle fleet was approaching the planet, claiming to investigate reports of illegal xenobiological activities. Maya felt her blood turn cold. The hegemony only sent battle fleets when they intended to destroy something completely. They had discovered Starfire's presence on the planet. "How long do we have?" Maya asked. Dr. Vex checked his calculations. 6 hours, maybe 7 before they reach orbit. Maya looked back toward the hidden valley where Starfire waited, wounded and helpless. 6 hours was not enough time to heal the dragon's wounds or help Starfire escape to another world. But it might be enough time to try something else entirely. "Dr. Vex," Maya said, "what if we don't try to hide Starfire? What if we do the opposite?" The Nagan scientist stared at her in confusion. "You want to reveal the dragon to the hegemony? They will destroy Starfire immediately." "Not to the hegemony," Maya said, her mind racing with a desperate plan. "To everyone else. To every species in the galaxy." Maya's idea was audacious beyond belief. Instead of trying to hide Starfire from the approaching fleet, they would broadcast the dragon's story to the entire galactic community. They would show the galaxy what Maya had discovered, that dragons were not monsters, but intelligent beings who had been systematically hunted and destroyed based on lies. "The station's communication array," Maya continued. "It's powerful enough to reach every civilized world in this sector. If we can get Starfire to the station and show the galaxy what's really happening here, maybe we can change everything." Dr. Vex was quiet for a long moment. "It would mean exposing ourselves completely. The hegemony would consider us traitors to galactic security." "Then we'll be traitors," Maya said firmly. "Starfire has been alone for who knows how long, believing they were the last of their kind. If there are other dragons hiding somewhere in the galaxy, they deserve to know they're not alone. And every species that has been lied to about dragons deserves to know the truth." Maya's words carried the force of absolute conviction. Dr. Vex had lived for over 2 centuries and had never encountered anything like the pure moral courage radiating from this human girl. She was willing to risk everything, not just for Starfire, but for justice itself. "Very well," Dr. Vex said, his scales shimmering with determination. "But we will need help. This cannot be accomplished by just the 2 of us." Maya and Dr. Vex raced back to the research station where they found chaos. Most of the researchers were packing equipment and preparing for evacuation. The approaching hegemony fleet had everyone terrified, but Maya and Dr. Vex had one advantage. They knew exactly what the hegemony was coming to destroy. While other researchers panicked about unknown dangers, Maya was focused on a specific goal. Maya found her father in his laboratory, frantically trying to preserve years of research data. "Dad, I need to tell you something important." Dr. James Chen looked up from his work, seeing something in his daughter's expression that made him stop everything. "Maya, what's wrong?" Maya told him everything. About finding Starfire, about the nights of secret medical treatment, about the dragon's true nature and the lies the hegemony had spread across the galaxy. Dr. Chung listened in amazement as his 16-year-old daughter described acts of courage that would have challenged experienced diplomats. "You've been treating a dragon?" Dr. Chun said slowly. "Alone for 5 nights. With Dr. Vex's help," Maya corrected. "Dad, Starfire isn't a monster. Dragons aren't what we've been told they are. The hegemony has been committing genocide based on propaganda." Dr. Chun was quiet for several minutes, processing the implications of what Maya had told him. As a scientist, he was trained to follow evidence regardless of where it led. And the evidence his daughter presented was overwhelming. "What do you need from me?" he asked finally. Maya felt a surge of love and gratitude for her father. Even faced with the most impossible situation imaginable, he trusted her judgment and was ready to help. "We need to get Starfire to the main laboratory," Maya explained. "And we need to prepare a galactic broadcast that will change everything." Dr. Chain nodded grimly. "Then we'd better get started." What followed was the most intense few hours of Maya's life. Dr. Vex had recruited 3 other researchers who were willing to risk everything for the truth. Zix, a Chitauri engineer who had always suspected the official dragon stories were false. Harmony, a whisper being whose species had ancient memories of dragons as peaceful protectors. And Granite Song, whose rocky people had legends of dragons that contradicted hegemony propaganda. Together, they modified the station's cargo transporter and created a makeshift medical facility in the main laboratory. The most dangerous part was transporting Starfire from the hidden valley, but the dragon's trust in Maya made it possible. When Starfire materialized in the laboratory, several researchers who had not been part of the plan fainted from shock, but those who remained quickly saw what Maya had discovered. Starfire was magnificent, intelligent, and clearly suffering from deliberate wounds inflicted by advanced weapons. Any being with compassion could see that this was not a monster, but a victim. Dr. Chun began preparing the galactic broadcast while Dr. Vex and the medical team worked on Starfire's wing. The surgery was complex, requiring tools designed for multiple species and techniques that pushed the limits of their knowledge. Maya stayed by Starfire's head throughout the operation, maintaining their mental connection and providing comfort. Through their link, she could feel the dragon's amazement at being surrounded by beings who wanted to help rather than harm. But even as they worked, time was running out. The hegemony fleet was only 2 hours from orbit. "Broadcast ready," Dr. Chun announced. "Are you certain you want to do this, Maya?" "Once we transmit, there's no going back." Maya looked around the laboratory at the beings who had risked everything to help her save one dragon. She thought about Starfire's memories of a galaxy where dragons soared free between the stars, helping other species and sharing knowledge. She thought about all the dragons who had died believing they were alone and hated. "Send it," Maya said. The broadcast that went out from Kepler 442b that day would be remembered as one of the most important transmissions in galactic history. It showed Starfire in the laboratory, clearly intelligent and peaceful, surrounded by researchers from multiple species who testified to the dragon's true nature. Maya spoke directly to the galaxy, her young voice carrying across countless worlds. "My name is Maya Chun, and I'm a human. 5 nights ago, I found a dragon left to die in a hidden valley. The hegemony told us dragons were monsters, but they lied. Starfire is intelligent, peaceful, and has been hunted nearly to extinction for no reason except fear." The broadcast included Dr. Vex's analysis of Starfire's wounds, proving they came from hegemony energy weapons. It showed Starfire's gentle interactions with the research team, demonstrating intelligence and emotions that matched any sentient species, but most powerfully, it showed Starfire's own testimony. Using the translation device, the dragon spoke directly to the galaxy for the first time in centuries, sharing memories of the systematic genocide that had destroyed Dragon civilization. The response across the galaxy was immediate and explosive. On world after world, beings who had accepted hegemony propaganda without question suddenly saw the truth. Ancient records that had been suppressed were brought forward, showing dragons as helpers and protectors rather than threats, but the hegemony's response was swift and brutal. The battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace as the broadcast ended. Weapons charged and ready to destroy everything on the planet's surface. Admiral Krax, the fleet commander, sent a single message to the research station: surrender the illegal xenobiological specimen immediately, or we will sterilize the planet. Maya stood in the laboratory, looking at Starfire, who was still weak from surgery but alive and healing. The dragon's wing had been repaired, and given time, Maya returned to the research station just as the morning shift was beginning. She slipped through the emergency airlock and hung up her vinyl suit, trying to act casual as other researchers started their daily routines. Her heart was still pounding from her encounter with Starfire, and she had to force herself to walk normally to her quarters. Over breakfast, Maya listened carefully to the conversations around her. The alien researchers were discussing their work, sharing data about the planet's ecosystem, but none of them mentioned hearing the dragon's cries. Either they were pretending it never happened, or they had convinced themselves it was something else. "Maya, you look tired," said her father, studying her face with concern. "Are you adjusting well to the local day cycle?" "I'm fine, Dad," Maya said, managing a smile. "Just excited about all the new discoveries here." Dr. Cheen smiled back, but Maya could see he was worried. Her father was one of the most observant people she knew. She would have to be more careful. Maya spent the morning helping Dr. Vex catalog plant samples, but her mind was elsewhere. She was making mental notes of the medical supplies she could access without raising suspicion. The research station had an excellent medical bay designed to treat injuries from multiple species. "Dr. Vex," Maya said carefully, "what do you know about treating energy weapon burns?" The Nagan scientist's scales rippled with discomfort. "Why do you ask such a thing, young human?" "Just curious," Maya said. "I've read about energy weapons in galactic history, but I've never seen the medical protocols for treating wounds from them." Dr. Vex was quiet for a long moment. "Energy weapon burns are difficult. The energy disrupts the natural healing process. Special treatments are needed, neutralizing agents that can stop the energy from spreading." "Why this interest in weapons?" "I want to understand how the medical technology works," Maya said. "Humans learn by asking questions." This seemed to satisfy Dr. Vex, who began explaining the complex process of treating energy burns. Maya listened carefully, memorizing every detail. She learned about neutralizing compounds, regeneration stimulators, and pain management protocols. That evening, Maya waited until the station was quiet before making her move. She had spent the day identifying which supplies she could take without being missed. Small quantities of medical compounds, portable scanners, and basic surgical tools. Nothing that would be obviously missing, but enough to start treating Starfire's wounds. Maya also took something else, a translation device designed to help researchers communicate with newly discovered species. If she was right about the mental connection she had felt with Starfire, the device might help them communicate more clearly. The journey back to the Hidden Valley felt different this time. Maya knew what she would find there, and the weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders. She was attempting something that trained doctors might struggle with, using equipment she barely understood to treat a creature whose biology was unlike anything in the medical databases. But Maya had spent her life around alien species, watching how different beings approached problems. She had learned that sometimes the most important thing was not knowledge or experience, but the willingness to try. Starfire was awake when Maya entered the valley. The dragon's enormous head turned toward her, and Maya felt the now familiar sensation of their mental connection. The dragon was weaker than the night before, but there was hope in those ancient eyes. Maya set up her equipment and began examining Starfire's wounds more carefully. The energy weapon burns were worse than she had thought. The alien technology had not just burned the dragon's scales and flesh. but had disrupted the very life force that allowed dragons to heal naturally. "This is going to hurt," Maya said softly, activating the translation device. To her amazement, the device began producing sounds that seemed to resonate with Starfire's own vocalizations. Through their mental link, Maya felt Starfire's response, acceptance and gratitude. The dragon understood that healing would require pain, and was willing to endure it. Maya began with the neutralizing compounds, carefully applying them to the worst of the burns. Starfire's body tensed with pain, but the dragon remained perfectly still, trusting Maya completely. Through their connection, Maya could feel Starfire's amazement at her gentle touch. Dragons were beings of immense power, used to being feared by other species. The idea that someone would touch them with kindness was almost incomprehensible. As Maya worked, Starfire began sharing memories through their mental link. Maya saw flashes of the dragon's long life, soaring through the void between stars, visiting worlds where dragons were worshipped as gods, and fighting alongside other species against common threats. But she also saw darker memories. The gradual fear that spread across the galaxy as dragons were portrayed as monsters. The systematic hunting that drove them to hide on remote worlds. The propaganda that convinced entire civilizations that dragons were too dangerous to exist. "They're afraid of you," Maya realized, pausing in her work. "Not because you're monsters, but because you're powerful enough to challenge them." Through their link, Maya felt Starfire's confirmation. Dragons were not just intelligent beings. They were among the oldest and most advanced species in the galaxy. They had technology and knowledge that could reshape civilizations. The hegemony had convinced the galaxy to eliminate dragons not because they were evil, but because they represented a threat to the hegemony's control. Maya continued working through the night, cleaning wounds, applying healing compounds, and using the regeneration stimulators to encourage natural healing. It was exhausting work, made more difficult by Starfire's massive size. But Maya refused to quit. As dawn approached, Maya could see improvement. The infected energy burns were beginning to clean, and Starfire's breathing was less labored. The dragon's gratitude flowed through their mental connection like warm sunlight. "I have to go back," Maya said reluctantly, "but I'll return tonight." "With more supplies?" Starfire's response was understanding, but Maya also sensed something else, a warning. Through their link, the dragon shared images of ships in space, searching, hunting. The hegemony had not given up. They were looking for any sign that dragons might still exist. Maya's actions, innocent as they seemed, were already beginning to draw attention. Over the following days, Maya established a routine. She spent her days learning everything she could about advanced medical techniques, using her natural curiosity to ask questions that would help her treat Starfire. At night, she made the journey to the hidden valley, bringing supplies and continuing the dragon's treatment. Maya was careful to vary her route and timing, to avoid creating patterns that might be noticed. But she was so focused on helping Starfire that she failed to notice. She was being watched. Dr. Vex had begun to suspect that something was wrong. Maya's questions were too specific, her interest in energy weapon treatments too focused. The young human was also showing signs of fatigue, as if she was not getting enough sleep. On the 5th night of Maya's secret treatments, Dr. Vex decided to follow her. The Nagan scientist was skilled at moving silently, a talent left over from his species' hunting heritage. He tracked Maya through the rock formations, staying far enough back to avoid detection. When he saw her descend into the hidden valley, Dr. Vex followed to the edge and looked down. What he saw should have terrified him. By all the training and conditioning of his species, dragons were monsters to be feared and destroyed. But what Dr. Vex actually witnessed was something that challenged everything he had been taught. Maya knelt beside the enormous dragon, working carefully on its wounds with medical equipment. The dragon remained perfectly still, allowing the tiny human to tend to injuries that would have killed most beings. There was no threat in the scene, no violence or danger. Instead, Dr. Vex saw something that his species had almost forgotten. Compassion between two beings who had every reason to fear each other. Maya, was so focused on her work that she didn't notice Dr. Vex watching from above. She had made remarkable progress with Starfire's injuries. The worst of the energy weapon burns had been neutralized, and the dragon's natural healing was beginning to take effect. But Maya knew she needed more advanced equipment to fully heal the dragon's broken wing. The wing is going to require surgical intervention, Maya explained to Starfire through their translation device. I need better tools and probably help from someone with more medical knowledge. Through their mental connection, Maya felt Starfire's concern. The dragon had lived for thousands of years by being careful, by hiding from those who would harm them. Revealing their existence to another being was incredibly dangerous, but Maya had proven herself different from other species. Through their growing bond, Starfire had seen into Maya's heart and found something remarkable: absolute determination to help, regardless of the cost to herself. As Maya packed up her equipment, preparing to leave for the night, Dr. Vex made his decision. The Negan scientist had been trained to fear dragons, but he had also been trained to recognize courage when he saw it. And what he had witnessed in the valley was the purest form of courage. A young being risking everything to help someone in need. Dr. Vex stepped out of the shadows as Maya began climbing out of the valley. Wait, he called softly. Maya froze, her heart pounding. She had been. Maya Chun pressed her face against the cold window of the transport shuttle, watching the alien landscape of Kepler 442b roll beneath them. The planet's 3 moons cast strange shadows across the purple grasslands, making everything look like a dream. She was only 16, but she had already seen more worlds than most adults back on Earth. Her father, Dr. James Chun, worked for the Galactic Survey Division. Their family moved from planet to planet, studying new worlds and making first contact with alien species. Maya had grown used to being the only human child on research stations filled with beings that looked nothing like her. We're landing in 5 minutes, announced Zeph, their Altarian pilot. His blue skin shimmered as he adjusted the controls with his 4 arms. The research station is small. Only 20 beings working there. Maya nodded, gathering her few belongings. Another new world, another temporary home. She wondered what kind of aliens she would meet this time. Would they be friendly like the Altarians, or cold and distant like the Vegan Empire representatives? The landing was smooth. As Maya stepped off the shuttle, she breathed in the alien air. It smelled like cinnamon and rain. The research station stood before her, a collection of white domes connected by covered walkways. In the distance, she could see strange rock formations that looked like twisted spires reaching toward the purple sky. Welcome to Kepler 442b, said her father, putting his arm around her shoulders. The locals call it Thyros. We'll be here for 6 months, studying the native wildlife. The research station was buzzing with activity. Maya met beings from 12 different species, all working together to catalog the planet's life forms. There were the insect-like Chitauri with their clicking language, the floating gas beings called whispers, and the rock-skinned granite people who spoke in musical tones, but Maya noticed something odd. Whenever she asked about exploring the planet's surface, the aliens became uncomfortable. They would change the subject or find excuses to walk away. The surface is dangerous for young beings, explained Dr. Vex, a snake-like Negan scientist with silver scales. There are things in the deep valleys, ancient things that should not be disturbed. Maya's human curiosity was immediately sparked. What could make beings from across the galaxy afraid? These aliens had technology that could travel between stars, weapons that could destroy moons, and shields that could stop meteor impacts. What was out there that scared them so much? For 3 weeks, Maya stayed within the safe zones around the research station. She helped her father catalog plant samples and assisted other researchers with their work. But every night she stared out at the twisted rock spires in the distance, wondering what secrets they held. The answer came during her 4th week on Thyros. Maya was working alone in the botany lab, pressing alien flowers between sheets of bioglass when she heard a sound that made her blood freeze. It was a cry of pain, so deep and mournful that it seemed to shake the very air. Maya dropped her tools and ran to the window. The cry came again, echoing across the purple plains from somewhere beyond the spires. Every alien in the station had stopped what they were doing. She could see them through the windows of other buildings, all looking toward the source of the sound. What was that? Maya asked Dr. Vex, who had appeared beside her, his scales pale with fear. Nothing, Dr. Vex said quickly. Just wind through the rock formations. You should return to your quarters. But Maya had heard wind through rocks before, on dozens of different worlds. This was not wind. This was something alive, something in terrible pain. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The crying had stopped, but the memory of it haunted her. She thought about her grandmother's stories from Earth, about people who heard cries for help and chose to ignore them. Her grandmother had always said that the measure of a person was what they did when nobody was watching. When helping someone would cost them something, Maya made her decision. She waited until the research station's night cycle, when most beings were resting. The security systems were designed to keep dangerous things out, not to keep researchers in. Maya had watched the guards long enough to know their patterns. She slipped out through the emergency airlock in the botany lab, the one used for collecting samples from dangerous areas. She had borrowed an environmental suit designed for human use, along with a scanner and emergency beacon. If she got into real trouble, she could call for help. The alien landscape looked different at night. The 3 moons cast overlapping shadows that created a maze of light and darkness. Maya followed the direction where the cry had come from, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. The rock spires were taller than they looked from the station, some reaching hundreds of feet into the purple sky. As Maya walked between them, she noticed something strange. The rocks were covered in markings, symbols that had been carved deep into the stone. They looked ancient, worn, smooth by countless years of wind and rain. Maya followed a narrow path between 2 massive spires, her suit's lights cutting through the alien darkness. The path led downward into a valley hidden between the rocks. As she descended, the air grew thicker, and her scanner began picking up unusual energy readings. Then she saw a dot in the center of the hidden valley lay a creature unlike anything Maya had ever seen. It was enormous, at least 50 feet long, with scales that shifted color from deep blue to silver in the moonlight. Its body was serpentine, but with 4 powerful legs and wings that were folded against its sides. Its head was noble and intelligent, with eyes like liquid starlight. It was a dragon. An actual living dragon, but this dragon was dying. Maya could see massive wounds along its side, burns that looked like weapon marks. One of its wings was twisted at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. The creature's breathing was labored, and dark blood stained the ground around it. As Maya approached, the dragon's enormous head turned toward her. Their eyes met, and Maya felt something incredible happen. She could sense the dragon's thoughts, not in words but in feelings and images. Pain, sadness, abandonment, and underneath it all, a fierce intelligence and dignity that took her breath away. The dragon was not a mindless beast. It was as intelligent as any being Maya had ever met, perhaps more so. And it was shocked to see her. In its ancient memory, it had known humans only as legends, stories told by other species, about strange beings from a distant world who did impossible things. Maya knelt beside the dragon's massive head, ignoring the fact that the creature could crush her without effort. "I'm going to help you," she said softly. Even though she had no idea how, the dragon's response came as a wave of disbelief and hope. Through their mental connection, Maya saw flashes of the dragon's recent past. It had been attacked by a fleet of ships from the Hegemony, the galaxy's most powerful military alliance. The dragon had been protecting something, defending a place that was sacred to its kind, but the Hegemony had declared dragons extinct. They had hunted the last of them across the galaxy, claiming they were too dangerous to exist. This dragon, whose name was something like Starfire in the ancient tongue, was possibly the last of its species. The Hegemony ships had left Starfire for dead, believing it would die slowly in this forgotten valley. They had not bothered to finish the job, assuming the wounds would be enough. They had not counted on a human girl finding their victim. Maya began examining the dragon's injuries with her scanner. The technology was advanced enough to analyze alien biology, and what she saw made her heart sink. The wounds were severe, infected with some kind of energy weapon residue. That was preventing natural healing. Any rational person would have called for help immediately. The research station had medical facilities and doctors from multiple species. But Maya knew what would happen if she told the adults. They would contact the authorities. The authorities would contact the hegemony. And the hegemony would come to finish what they started. Maya looked into Starfire's ancient eyes and made a choice that would change everything. "I'm not going to let them find you," she whispered. "I'm going to save you myself." The dragon's response was a mix of gratitude and concern. Starfire could sense that Maya was young, untrained in medicine, and completely unprepared for such a massive undertaking. But the dragon also sensed something else in the human girl, something that had made humans legendary across the galaxy. Maya had hope. Not the careful, calculated hope of older beings who had learned to expect failure. She had the pure, unbreakable hope of youth. The kind that could move mountains and reshape worlds. As Maya began planning how to help the dying dragon, neither of them knew that their actions would soon ripple across the entire galaxy. The hegemony had spent decades convincing the other species that dragons were extinct monsters that deserved their fate. But now a human girl was about to prove them wrong. Maya spent the rest of the night sitting beside Starfire, studying her scanner readings and trying to figure out how to treat wounds that were beyond anything in her limited medical knowledge. But she didn't give up. Humans never gave up, especially when someone was counting on them. As the alien dawn began to paint the sky in shades of gold and purple, Maya made her first real plan. She would need supplies from the research station, medical equipment that could treat energy weapon burns. She would need to work in secret, visiting Starfire every night while pretending